Good evening. My name is Jason, and I'll be giving you a brief history on Disneyland. I believe to truly enjoy Disneyland, you have to understand what went into the ideas behind Disneyland, all the work that went into the creation of Disneyland, and where it might be going in the future. So Disneyland opened in 1955, and it didn't go quite as well as they had hoped, but it's still with us to this day, 70 years later, almost 70 years later. Um, so why was Disneyland created? Walt Disney, animator, decided that he wanted a place for his employees and their children to enjoy, just outside of work. And so he originally thought 16 acres across the street from his Burbank studio would be big enough for a park. And one thing that he knew he wanted was a carousel because he enjoyed watching his daughters at Griffith Park enjoy the carousel there. So he knew he wanted that. But then Mr. Disney, being the innovator, dreamer that he was, his idea grew into 160 acres of um, orange groves in Anaheim, California. He knew that it was going to, he knew that financing a dream would be hard. So he sent his brother Roy out to New York to talk to the television studios, NBC, ABC, and CBS, in exchange for producing a series of shows about his dream for Disneyland. They would, for $500,000, give or take, they would receive about 34% of ownership of Disneyland. Two of the three studios said no, we don't want to do it. ABC was the one that said yes. They they own 34%, give or take, of Disneyland. So they so when so I saw in a book written by Richard Snow entitled Disney's Land. Um, the quote said, "I could never convince the financiers that Disneyland was feasible because dreams are often offer too little collateral." So that's where he came up with the idea of using the studios to come up with the money for Disneyland. Like I said, only ABC said yes, we'll do it. So they sent off on their adventure together. They So opening day was July 17th, 1955, and the crowd was huge, larger than to be expected for something brand new. I believe it was partly because of the exposure that Mr. Disney was giving the public through through his television series, and so it opened. It was large. There was a parade, lots of people. And one of the the dedication speech that he gave, and I think it's really kind of neat. And I found it on Aris Travel on YouTube. He said, "To all who come to this happy place, welcome. Disneyland is your land. Here age relives fond memories of the past, and here youth may savor the challenge and promise of the future. Disneyland is dedicated to the ideals, the dreams, and the hard facts that have created America, with the hope that it will be a source of joy and inspiration to all the world." I think that's a really cool speech. And it fits Disneyland. So that was the Disneyland opening day. On opening day, they only had 5 lands. You had Main Street USA, sorry, Frontierland, Adventureland, Tomorrowland, and um, uh, Bear Country. Sorry. which later became Critter Country. But the other four are still there to this day. And since opening day in 1955, Disneyland has obviously expanded. It has added Downtown Disney, which was a former Disneyland parking lot. Um, New Orleans Square, which is where we have Pirates of the Caribbean. And much more was created, and everything has evolved as Disney has grown over the years, and it's still expanding. Um, Disney's California is also built on a former parking lot, and that's where we get the Avengers campus. But back at Disneyland, they added Star Wars Galaxy Edge, also in 1921, I believe. Yeah. So Disneyland is always growing, expanding, evolving, always changing. Just like anything that lives. I believe Disneyland is something that is a livable thing. So, and I also found this last quote, and I will leave it with you. And I found it in Famous Quotes on YouTube. I said, Disneyland will never be completed. It will continue to grow as long as there's imagination left in the world. And that was by Walt Disney himself. Thank you, and have a good night.